we're staying. We're not going down. We're going to stay and we're going to attempt summit today. We were the only 2 people in Camp 4. Nothing, there was nothing in the back of my head saying something's wrong, you know? There was nothing like, well, no one else is climbing, something's wrong. I was like, no one else is climbing, we're going to have a clear way to go up. That summit? He goes, yeah! And I'm like, okay, we don't have long, let's traverse that. It happened 3 times. Every time I shed a tear. How's man crying, thinking this is the summit, go up, that's not the summit. Am I a dickhead? This is Reliving Climbing Everest, day 42. Let's just jump straight into it. Those winds, that tent was being shaken. So remember that snow blizzard that I got caught in the day before? This is the night of that day. And it just kept going. I'm already on Oxy. You can see my headphones are in. I was like, if there's something that falls, an avalanche that is, you know what I mean? At least I'm sleeping well. Music playing.
So last night, slept on oxygen. Feel good.
Good. You know, man's not good.
No, as I said, my priority was summit. Second was without oxygen. It's okay.
You get to that point where you see I'm using minimum words, you know, I'm no longer talkative. Man's giving that does. Slept, feel good. Yeah, good is an understatement, I would say. Or an overstatement even. But yeah, it was a hell of a night. It was a tight night. I remember waking up.
Couldn't even stretch your legs.
Yeah. I slept like this, cradled up like a baby. And it also reduced the blood flow going to my legs. You know, with the tight shoes, the summit boots. I was cutting off a lot of circulation to my feet. So when I woke up in the morning, or even I woke up throughout the night and I was like, you know, you go like this with your toes to try and get some blood flowing into them. Those are like little techniques, you know, you have to be like, yeah, it's going to be okay, you know, so just try to go back to sleep and wiggle your toes a little bit more. And yeah, we slept in that 2-man tent, in the 4 of us. Yeah, not the most comfortable night, but yeah, it was good. Antonio left after that. He left because he wanted a better summit window, because he was also summiting Lhotse, which is the 6th highest mountain. So he goes from Everest summit down to Lhotse Camp 4 and then back up to Lhotse summit and then down to Camp 2. It's a thing people do if you want to climb Lhotse and Everest. Obviously, man didn't have the budget for that kind of thing. Yeah, me and Purba with our broken English or broken Nepalese, you know, when we left Camp 2, we were like, on the 14th, the weather is meant to be good. And that's what we decided, and we were like, we're staying. We're not going down. We're going to stay and we're going to attempt summit today, you know? So this was our thinking. We had a good forecast. We planned it, and we were going to stick to the plan. No one else stuck to that plan. Everyone else left Camp 4, and yes, we should have listened, and yes, we should have been like less, you know, okay, let's wait and see. We kind of did that. We waited to see what was going to happen, you know, and that's what we did. So that's exactly what I'm explaining. What I just said. That we had a good weather for that 14th.
My friend Purba, say hello, Purba.
Hello.
We're staying. We're going to it out. Luckily, I have some supplies.
Had a whole bag of supplies as well. Oh, Antonio, if you're watching this, yeah, I love you, brother. Because that piece of cheese and that piece of pancetta, like, I saved that, right? And what I did is I cut it up into cubes and put it in a tiny little bag, and I shoved it in with my pocket, in my breast pocket with my phone. So the reason my phone didn't freeze over was because I had it in my breast pocket, right? But in that breast pocket was also medicine, and there was also those cubes of cheese, which what I was going to do is for my summit push, I'll take a cube out, lift my mask, put the cube in, and put my mask back on. So that could melt and just release some energy into my body without me realizing. And that was what I was going to do, and I did at certain intervals during the climb. Obviously, the higher you go, the more intense it gets, the less you think about other things other than summit and survival. You're not really thinking about food and hydration. But that was my plan, and I saved that cheese, and I saved that little bit of pancetta, and honestly, that was amazing. It was the best tasting cheese I've ever had. Ah, there's the bit of pancetta. See, so I had a fair bit of supplies when I got there.
Yeah, so,
So I had enough
today's the 14th of
to
May,
survive that night and to
the plan
build
was to
enough
summit the
energy
14th of May.
for
After I
that
got
day
ill,
and the summit
the
push.
13th was the first day.
So to recover, which was
But I
important.
was obviously at camp. Anyway, you get a bit cold that night.
A bit cold that night.
Couldn't take my shoes off. Had to wiggle my toes until the blood
Exactly
got
what I was
flowing
explaining. I
again.
had to wiggle my toes.
No problem. Yeah, we rest it out. Maybe we leave at about 7 o'clock. 7:80. We'll see. See what happens. Good rest. Yeah.
So, I think I mentioned it already, but that was, that was maybe like 7, 8 in the morning when I took that video when Antonio left. And you get up there, and one thing that confused me is my phone automatically changed time to Tibet time. Anyway, what it did is it messed around with my clock. And, we now had, from the morning, which is like 8 a.m., we weren't leaving until maybe 7 p.m. So we had all that time to spend. And, there's only so much you can sleep, so much you can rest. So at one point I was, playing a game on my phone, and I was like, shit, I still have Gladiator downloaded, which I haven't watched in Camp 2. So, and I kid you not, at 7,950 meters, I watched the Gladiator, the full movie, and there and then I decided it wasn't as good as I remember. Yeah, so we waited until about 5 o'clock, and then I was like to Purba, so what time should we leave? He goes, around 7. I looked at the time, and I was like, Purba, it's like 6 o'clock. We're not even like preparing to get ready. He's like, he like realizes that we're getting close to the time we should be leaving. So when we actually did leave, we left about an hour or 2 later than we should have, because we didn't start prepping. It's like being at the airport when you think you have a lot of time and then all of a sudden you miss your flight. That's exactly what kind of happened. We're like, we have so much time. So yeah, we kind of missed it. We were 2 hours late. And if you look later on, when I was climbing, if we left those 2 hours earlier, we would have missed that whole 70-kilometer wind thing. We would have had a perfect summit with no one else summiting on the day. Well, that was already what happened. But we would have had 0 queues, 0 people summiting Everest on that day. in great condition. But the winds came. Anyway.
Oh no. Oh. Still a bit windy. Not as windy.
Still a bit windy, not as windy.
Oh.
Adjectives, guys. Go to school.
There, I'm guessing that goes there. Hopefully, it'll go down you go. And we'll get to climb today.
Oh, those drone shots. Beautiful. And from there, what I would do, I would fly the drone 500 meters up. And I was like, if it can fly at 8,000 and go up 500 and maintain altitude, I can go to 8,500 and fly up. And so I can probably fly on the summit. Remember, I didn't know how high this drone could go, so I was testing it the whole time. Wasp was my little guinea pig, which is the name to my drone.
I feel good. Even though I've been on no oxygen for the past hour, I'm just gonna get some more soup in me. Me and Purba are gonna share this.
More food,
More protein in it.
more food, more water.
Yeah, get ready for a 12-hour summit push.
So I say 12-hour summit push. The reason I say 12-hour summit push is it's almost called your return. I think it's a return window. If within 12 hours you're not nearing the peak, it's kind of a rule where you have to start thinking about turning back if you're not getting anywhere close. So pretty much it's like a basic rule, if you're not, you should be turning around sort of. But yeah, it kind of took us a little bit longer than 12 hours, but we summited. Think about it. So that was part one. I mean, let's get straight into part two, I guess.
7.
This day, like, I remember that scene and I remember filming that like it was yesterday. We were the only 2 people in Camp 4. We knew we were the only 2 people in Camp 4 before that because I was out droning, there was no one else around, everyone else went down. There was nothing in the back of my head saying something's wrong, There was nothing like, well, no one else is climbing, something's wrong. I was like, no one else is climbing, we're going to have a clear way to go up. No one's going to get in our way. There's not going to be any of these queues everyone talks about. We're going to be, I was thinking people are going to start coming up behind us later on during the day. I was very, very wrong about that part. Let me tell you that.
Reliving Camp 4. 7,900 meters. It's Summit Everest. Oh my goodness.
So, a few times I speak Polish in my vlogs, especially my saying of kurwa strong, which is a Polish swear word. That's a very bad swear word, but kurwa strong is meant to be like, seriously strong, you can do anything sort of thing. So when I was saying there, I was like, dawaj kurwa, which means come on for fuck's sakes almost. But in the mask, it sounded like I was saying Purba, which is the name of my Sherpa. So I was like, dawaj Purba, like dawaj kurwa, and Purba would turn around and he'd be like, huh? And he would be like, 15, 20 meters in front of me or above me as well when we were climbing. He'd be like, huh? I look at him like, nothing, it's okay. So yeah, it's a little funny thing that was happening every now and then when I was like, hey, come on, my Kurva. He's like, what? Huh? Yeah. Another thing you see is, especially in this video, I wasn't used to wearing oxygen masks. This was my first time putting that on during that climb, the whole climb of Everest, and you see why things happen the way they happen, because I wasn't used to wearing it. I was no longer protecting my cheeks like I was when I left Camp 2, because I had a mask on, but I didn't cover the sides, you know. So in hindsight, you know, what I would have had to do is put the bandana back on and cut a slit for easy airflow to come through, which would have protected my cheeks, which would have stopped a lot of the things that happened in the following video.
1060! My back hurt at the beginning, and I used the tablet.
Again, Antonio, just before Antonio left, when he left me with the cheese and pancetta, he left me with, I think it was a 600 milligram ibuprofen tablet. And for those people that know, maybe it was even 800. For those people that know, that's a big tablet. Like, that's a big ibuprofen tablet. And that was my only tablet that was left, believe it or not. And I put it in my pocket because I knew my back might hurt. I remember leaving Camp 4 to go push for the summit. And I was in such pain, especially from the day before. You know, that was a continuous pain. And I was in such pain when I put that backpack on again. I took that tablet, and it takes about half an hour for it to kick in. So in that hour, I was still climbing with that pain and, pushing that another 100 meters, another 10 meters. And the pain went away. And I was the happiest man on earth. I was like, the pain's gone. We're going to summit. I'm at 8,060 meters. I've still got 800 meters to go. And at those altitude, 800 meters is a lot higher. And I'm like, we're going to do this. We're going to make it. I'm already positively set. There's nothing else that can stop me now. The weather's beautiful. I can see the stars. We're going for this.
No, I've got no more tablets, but at least there's no pain.
Got no more tablets, but at least there's no more pain. Amen to that. $8,300 meters. My mask one-way valve froze over. So it's now 20 past 12. And this happened twice, right? So what happens, you have the mask and you have your oxygen supply coming from the mask, but what it does is it mixes it with normal air. It just adds the extra oxygen. And when you have a lot of moisture in there, what tends to happen is that moisture kind of gets around and almost freezes that one-way valve over. So your breathing goes from to, like you're using your lungs to almost like suck that air into your lungs, So what was happening is it was easier for me to put my mask instead of over, it was on top of my chin here, which is where the whole icicle formed. So what I did, obviously then I wasn't still as tired as I was later on. I took my mask off, unscrewed it, took my knife out, scratched out the whole ice from it, flicked off the ice, blew it, screwed it back together, and perfect, it was working again. That was what I did the first and the second time when I repaired my my oxygen regulator, my mask. After that, I didn't have the energy to do it. I didn't have the energy, the capacity, the finger dexterity, I could say. So it was a lift the mask. And then all that condensation would drip onto my chin and form that massive icicle that everyone sees on my summit video. That's how that happened. I had a lot of time to think about it. Let me tell you. Regulator froze over, but I got it fixed. $8,400 meters. So that was the first body that I saw. And I still remember it was like a tinier path, right? It was like a little narrow path, you could say, with a little cliff ridge on either side here. And as I'm walking, you got to think about it, it's pitch black, right? And all you have is the visibility of where your torch points. So as I'm walking, I'm looking left and then look right, and right, probably like, a meter away, was just this crampon sticking out. And let me tell you, I jumped in it. I was like, kurwa, like, again, saying that Polish word. So Purba, again, as I said before, thinking I'm calling his name, he's like, huh? And he's like, oh, no. And I'm like, no, not you. And then as I had his attention, I'm like, Purba, you gotta tell me if there's a body up in front of us in the future, So, that was actually and from the information I had, it was an Indian climber from the year before. And he died towards the end of the season, climbing with no Sherpa and no supplementary oxygen, if I'm not mistaken. So, yes, that was unfortunate. Obviously, I blurred the video because out of respect for the climber, but at the same time I wanted to show the realism and what is actually going on up there. So we just passed the balcony, right? You can see my eyes frozen, hey? Like the wind coming from our left just blitzing this side. And I didn't have clear goggles. So the only goggles I had were my shaded ones. So it was already pitch black. And I was like, oh, it's only like it's just the eyelids sticking together. It's fine. It was okay. Later on, I find out that actually when like snowblind, the top layer gets, I think it's scratched or whatever it is, and you see blurry, like you can see shapes and outlines. Even in that moment, I was still laughing it off. But we're gonna keep pushing, and he starts laughing. It's getting close to 3 a.m. So the sun should start to come out and hopefully unfreeze the eyelid a little bit. That's what I was trying to. I was in my head, I was like, right, it's frozen now. Give it 2 more hours of climbing. The sun's gonna come out, right? Everything's gonna melt like it did when I was getting from Camp 3 to Camp 4. Everything's gonna melt and everything's gonna be perfect. And the fact that I'm still laughing and I'm still enjoying it, as I mentioned before, something up there is not correct, and that something's very, very wrong. But yeah, it's just crazy. So and when I turn that camera around, you can just see we're on this ledge. Later on, when I saw these videos of where we actually were, for us to traverse those areas in that dark, in that wind, where we couldn't see nothing. By then, you got to remember, this ice frozen. Like it's closed now because of what I think is just the ice, right? Later on, I find out when it actually unfreezes, I open it and I'm like, oh, I can't actually see anything from here. So, by then your peripheral is gone. You can't judge where your next step is. So, just before that happened though, before it unfroze, because no one else summited in the last, no one else pushed for summit for about 2 days. And in that blizzard, that rope was then iced over. So me and Purba were taking it in turns to just drag those ropes, pull those ropes out, so we can have that safety rope when traversing over those ledges. And as we're walking, at one point, sometimes those ropes would get stuck underneath, or they would make a tunnel underneath the ice, so you would pull it, but it won't be cracking open, it will be pulling from the other side, it will make like a tunnel. So at one point I looked at Purba, I'm like, watch this. I unclipped myself. Don't do that ever. I unclipped myself and I went on all fours and traversed to the next, like I saw the faint line, maybe about 5-6 meters traversing. And I clipped myself back in, turned around, and then Purba obviously did the same, clipped himself. So I did that a couple of times, and then I was like, let's not be silly, let's not risk it when I don't have to, but you had to use and exert a lot of energy to pull those ropes out. As we're going, you have an anchor point maybe every 30 meters, which is where the rope attaches and a new rope continues. All of a sudden, you know the general direction you're going. And this rope goes from one anchor point and all of a sudden just veers off to the right. So this actually is a thing I haven't spoken about. A couple of days before we summited, 2 climbers went missing. But what happened there was the rope so a climber was attached to the rope, and when he fell, he took the rope with him. So, because we were the first ones technically on the scene after that happened, we couldn't really go around to where he was because that wasn't a set out route, so we didn't know what was there, whether that was a ledge, whether this was just a snow bridge. So what me and Purba had to do was attach safety to each other, detach from the safety rope, and traverse from that anchor point to where we thought the next anchor point was. Now you have to imagine this is on ledges, hey? We're high up. Luckily, we got through to the next point safely, attached back on the safety rope, and really didn't want to do that part again, but we would have to on the way back. 8,700 meters. What did I say? When the sun will start to come out, everything is gonna melt. It was exactly an hour, because I saw it from the videos from filming. Exactly an hour from South Summit at 8,700 meters where I took that video, and I started getting my vision back. Everything that's just happened doesn't matter. The sun's out, right? We're gonna have a beautiful summit window. It's gonna be lovely. The only 2 people on the summit on that day. Yeah. I remember going up to the South Summit, and then there's a little way down, and then you have to go back up. Just was started to come down, and I looked at Purba, and there was this cloud coming, and I looked at Purba and I said, that cloud looks angry. It was just, when you see like one of those grey clouds going, trust me, that cloud was pissed off, and it did not want anyone summiting that day. Anyone. I was mumbling. I didn't know what I was saying. I was just trying to motivate myself that I'm close to the summit. But I'm gonna keep going because Purba's throwing. And it just kept pounding her. You gotta remember that vision is still impaired. My eye is just completely messed up now. So what Purba would do is I'll get close to him and I'll look at him and I'm like, Purba, summit? He's like, yes. So I would be like, a tear would come down my eye. I'm like, I made it. You're happy. I remember that feeling. I made it. I've done it. It's right there. I can see it. So we're climbing. I'm motivated. The last little steps. I'll take a video. I'm like, it's the last little steps, and I'll be standing on top of the world. And I climb up there. I look in the distance and I'm like, there cannot be something higher than the highest point in the world. So that wasn't the highest point. That's the highest point. And I looked at Purba. I'm like, okay, maybe just communication barrier. Is Purba that summit? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, okay, we don't have long. Let's traverse that. It happened 3 times. Every time I shed a tear. Every time Purba violated me that day. And I love the guy, but he violated me, innit? And I know he's learning English because he's been sending me videos and like speaking to me. And when he understands English, I'm gonna chat to him about that day, innit? And we're gonna chat properly about what he did to me. Because he violated me emotionally, let me tell you that much, innit? He violated me. Till today, man's passionate about that. I was violated. How's man crying, thinking this is the summit? Go up. That's not the summit. Am I a dickhead? Let's continue this one. So you have another body there. The higher up to the summit they are, the less likely they will be taken down, especially because they're so high up. So I think that person has been in there for years. 8,848.86 meters. 15th of May at 7:55. The only 2 fuckers standing on top of the world. No one else on top. No one else, even on that day, let alone at that time, stood anywhere on the world higher than us. Come on. Yeah, feel me? Hey. No one else. You're telling me it's not worth it. And a lot of you people ask why. The whole journey. It's got goosebumps.
It's time to go home. We're coming with you. Kurwa, son. Shut up. And it's for 2 o'clock. Polska kurwa. And the Union Jack. And he's like,
It's throwing everybody. Shit's getting me emotional. Let's go home. I had about 10 minutes on that summit. 10 to 15 minutes on that summit. That video, the long video, was never released. It's only the highlights, There was a couple of wishes to my family and friends, calling out people that have really supported me during the expedition. Another video that had more wishes, more family, friends, didn't get saved because my phone froze. So I wasn't upset. I was very happy that at least this video stayed. Because the whole time, what I used to do is put the phone in my breast pocket, right? And then take it out, film for a couple of seconds, put it back in. So my phone was never out for that code. That whole time, I was so happy my phone was out there. My phone was filming. That's what we were doing. And I'm very happy that saved. Obviously, Purba also got pictures, because if you don't take evidence, if you don't have evidence that you summited, you won't get recognized as summiting. So behind there, every year, the ice doctors will put either a new flag, or this year there was like a Buddhist statue there, which recognizes that you summited that year with that. This is how the summit looks like this year, sort of. And I didn't see my face and what it looked like until I saw the videos, because I got back to Camp 4, I still didn't see my face, right? I just, we went back to sleep. We got there, and I didn't take videos. My phone was frozen. My phone was gone. I remember the only thing I thought when I summited then is, don't die now. You know what I'm saying? Imagine that though. All of that footage, all of that like experience, all of that, and man's gonna die on the way down. And that's it. And being on a serious level, that's where a lot of people do pass away, because they've used all that energy, all that power, motivation to go up. But when I was preparing for it, I was preparing for the, you got to make it back down sort of thing. And the other thing was, don't lose your phone. This is why there is very, very, very minimal content on the way down, because I didn't want to lose that phone. I was not losing that phone, let me tell you, because nothing's saved, nothing's backed up, nothing's, it's all on the phone. If that fell off any of those ledges, ridges, anything, gone, right? So the way down was an experience in itself. Just even heading down from the summit back to Camp 4, we were sliding. It's not recommended not to eat the snow. It's not recommended to eat the snow. We had no water, much of snow. Sliding down as much as you could. Remember, my eye is still going. I don't have vision I've only got vision in one eye. Cold, your toes, you're starting to feel them. I actually forgot to mention that Purba lost his glove on the way up, and this was right at the beginning. But luckily I read up somewhere that someone was carrying a spare gloves because of exactly that reason. So I had my technical gloves. Remember the ones that I mentioned on climbing Island Peak that weren't warm enough? I looked at Purba and I said, I have this, but this is not good. And he's like, it's okay. So I gave him that. And on the way down, remember I also said during this recap, or reliving this part, is the chemical heat pads came in as a lifesaver. I put 2 each inside my boots, and I had about 3 or 4 inside each glove, just warming up my hands. So that's why I was able to take out my hand. So take out my hand from my mitten. Obviously this was still in a layered glove. Take out my phone, film, put my phone back in, and put it back into warmth. So everyone asking how I didn't lose body parts, I think those things have something to do with it. On the way down, I could see Purba was feeling that glove was not the best, So I was like, took out my chemical heaters, and I'm like, take this. He's like, no. I'm like, all right, go down a little bit more, and you can see, he's like pumping his hand. And I stop this man. I pull out my my heat pads, and I shove it in his glove, and I'm like, you keep those. He's like, okay. And then I could then take out, one from there and put it in my other glove, and I still had something, I didn't feel it, but it must have worked, Keep going, me and Purba, we're both weak now, Obviously, for Sherpas they have to bring back the bottles, otherwise the oxygen bottles, otherwise the company gets charged. So, we're coming down, and he's picking up the bottles that we've like like left along the way. And I looked at him, I'm like, are you crazy? Fuck those bottles. Yeah, we need to get down. He's like, okay. We rest for 2 minutes. He looks at me, he's like, put bottle. He wants me to put bottle in the bag. I'm like, brother, he just didn't listen. I'm like, fuck it, in the bag, on the back, let's go. Keep going down, traversing. We get to the balcony, and I remember this. At some point during the climb, I remember this was when I was getting to Camp 4. He attached his safety rope to mine and started dragging me. And I stood up and I detached myself and I'm like, Purba, this is not how I'm climbing. Gave him the rope back. So I decided I'm going to do the same as well. Because we was at the balcony and I'm like, Purba, we need to keep going. And a lot of people won't believe this, but we were there for each other, So as much as he was there for me, I was also there for him. He looks at me and he's like, go, you go. I looked at the man, and I looked at him, I'm like, you're fucking stupid, right? With the utmost respect. You're fucking stupid if I'm leaving you here. If you think that I'm going to leave you in this spot right now after all we've done. I took my safety rope, attached it to his, and started like doing the same thing he did to me. And he did the same thing I did to him. He detached it. After like 20 meters, he detached it and unclipped it. And, and I'll go down 50 meters and wait for him. And I told him I'm not moving until he gets to me. And then he'll do the same. He'll go down a little bit. He like, go. So I'll go 20 meters. From one anchor point to the other. The way down was long. It was very long. We get to Camp 4 and we're entering and there's people there now thinking like, what's going on? Where are they coming from? Like, did they just summit? Did they attempt and not come down? Like everyone's like, who the hell are these guys? Where did they come from? Because we weren't there when they arrived. We were on the mountain, so we just came down from this fog, from this big cloud. They're like, what are you doing? Like, where did you come from? We go straight into our tent, and I started looking for water, for food and water, right? And I looked at Purba and I said, the only thing we need is matches. It was about the longest half an hour between me and Purba. We just couldn't find matches. He found 3 matches in his bag. All of them I went, and they, the thing that burns fell off because they were all wet. And I looked at Purba, I'm like, Purba, this is the only thing that's going to save us right now. You need to go out there and speak to the Nepalese guys. Speak to anyone out in this camp. We need matches. And, after 15 minutes of like encouragement, I'm like, please, Purba, just go get some matches, bro. He did. He went to go get some matches, grabbed some matches. And we started, warming up. Took the feet off, and my toes were cold. Okay? So I put my toes over the fire. That was my priority at first. Warming up the toes and the fingers. Then water. And Purba looks at me. He's like, okay, 2 hours and go down. I looked at him. I'm like, Purba, we're not leaving this tent today. We can't leave this tent today. He looks at me, he goes, okay. Like relieved as well himself, because the plan is usually we don't stay, and I'm saying we need to stay, And because I didn't use the oxygen for so long, I had a lot of spare oxygen up there as well. So we had a bottle each, we could use that oxygen. So that's what we did. We stayed 2 nights at the death zone. Reliving Climbing Everest. And that was the first time I actually spoke about my summit experience on camera. And I think that will be it for Reliving Everest Day 42. We'll see you in Day 43.